In recent years, Borussia Dortmund have forged themselves a bit of a reputation for being a talent development factory. Through brilliant scouting and shrewd negotiating, they spotted and developed the talents of Christian Pulisic, Ousmane Dembele, Erling Haaland, Jadon Sancho, Jude Bellingham, and now Jamie Bino Gittens. In this rebuild, we're going to look to continue the trend as we rebuild Dortmund using youth transfers only. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. A big thank you for coming back and joining me on another video right here on YouTube. Today I'm going to be kicking off a brand new series. As you might have been able to tell from the intro, we're going to be taking the hot seat at the Signal Iduna Park in front of the yellow wall. Past couple of years, Borussia Dortmund have got themselves a bit of a reputation for spotting a talent, developing it, and in this series we're going to look to continue that trend as we rebuild Dortmund using youth players only. Here we go then, we have fired up a brand new save game in FM23, put ourselves in charge at the Signal Iduna Park, the home of the yellow wall, and we are now in charge at Borussia Dortmund. Now obviously Borussia Dortmund are a massive club, a name that is probably known throughout the footballing world, but in case you've been living on another planet for 20 years or simply aren't familiar with them, we're just going to have a quick run through their info page. We're also going to have a little look at their squad and what their best starting 11 might be, just to give away also what the tactic we're going to play is. And then we're going to jump forwards to the end of the first season. So let's run through this information page then. In the top left hand corner you can see their reputation is worldwide, their finances are secure, their training and youth facilities both mark up as superb. Junior coaching is good on 3 stars. They have excellent youth recruitment. Their estimated value is £513 million. They have a squad personality that is determined, and their year of founding was 1909. Looking at the bottom of the screen, you can see that they have Marco Reus at the club. He's both their club captain and their key player. If we have a little look at the player himself, you can see formerly representing Borussia Mönchengladbach, but he has been at Dortmund for such a long time, he will go down as one of the Dortmund greats. Looking at the player himself, 33 years old, probably coming to the end of his career now, but he's still an elite attacking midfielder according to his media description, can play off either wing, can also be a makeshift striker, which I don't think I've seen him play too often, but he obviously can jump in if we need him. Stats are still brilliant for his age. He has things like technique of 16, off the ball of 18, determination of 18, finishing, first touch, free kick taking. Marco Reus is a club legend. Moving on, as I said, he also goes down as a key player, but I would actually argue that that is now Jude Bellingham. Jude Bellingham is getting to a point both in the game and in real life where he's such an influential player. I remember watching him play for Dortmund in the Champions League against Manchester City, and he absolutely bossed one of the best Premier League teams that probably are ever going to be, and I think it's his time to step up and shine. I think he is a key player at the club. In terms of their hot prospect though, it's a name that everybody will recognise in Football Manager. He's the player that was so young once that they couldn't get the licence to put him in the game until his parents gave permission. He's Youssoufa Moukoko, 17 years old still, valued at 42 to 52 million pounds. He recently was called up in real life to the German full team for the World Cup. He's a player that I think is going to have a massive career ahead of him. When you look at his stats, he's a ball of raw talent that we're going to look to develop as we go along. 16 technique, 16 finishing, 16 dribbling, acceleration, agility, pace of 15, natural fitness of 15. I think he has everything that we need to be harnessing his powers as a world-class footballer. Plays as a striker, can also play off of the left wing and the right wing, can also play behind the striker, but I think for the duration of this we are probably just going to use him as our striker at the head of our tactic. Going back then, just round this off, let's have a little look at what they have done in terms of their honours list. So, Champions League winners in 1997, Bundesliga winners 8 times, seems to come in clusters for Dortmund, 56, 57, 63, then 95, 96, 2002, and then 11, 12. So they've won it back-to-back times, 3 times in different eras. Won UEFA Cup Winners' Cup in 1966. They have won the Intercontinental Championship in 1997 off the back of that European Cup Champions League win. DFB Pokal, 5 times winners there, most recently in 2021. And they have won the DFL Super Cup 6 times, most recently 2019. Looking at Signal Iduna Park itself, it was built in 1974. It's a very good stadium in terms of its condition. Its capacity is 81,365, so it's actually bigger than all of the club's stadiums in England. It does have a standing terrace as well as seating, so in certain configurations it will drop off, but it's still a very impressive thing to see the yellow wall do their thing. A quick look at the finances whilst we're on this screen then, and just to throw in the quirk that we always do in these rebuilds. So the overall balance at the club is £15.8 million. They've had a profit and loss on the season of £69 million. Now I think that is a lot to do with Jadon Sancho's transfer to Manchester United, maybe a few other bits of business as well. Looking at the transfer budget, this is where I have to explain we will not be making any transfers in the summer transfer window. That will be turned off. The first deals that we're going to be doing will be in January. So when we jump to the end of the first season, the first deals we will go over are those that happen in the January transfer window. They have a wage budget of £2.3 million, and they're pretty much spending all of it, but that is still a good budget for us to be able to build a squad going forwards. Speaking of squads, let's have a little run through the Borussia Dortmund squad at the start of the game. Starting at the top of the list, we have 2 goalkeepers. We have Alexander Meyer and Gregor Kobel. Kobel is 24 years old. He recently represented his national team at the World Cup in real life. I think he's the same base to build around at the age of 24. I think he's going to get a little bit better, but if he doesn't, we have a solid base between the sticks for which we can build upon. We have Mats Hummels. He's obviously a club legend. Did have a period at Bayern Munich, but I think the fans have kind of forgiven him for that. He's back wearing the yellow and black, and I think his stats speak for himself. Even if he is getting to the end of his career at the age of 33, probably get a couple of years out of him in the save. We have Niklas Süle. He's another player, played for Bayern Munich, ended up going to Borussia Dortmund. I think the fans will learn to love him. 26 years old, so we're going to get some time out of him. And then the other one at the back is Nico Schlotterbeck, 22 years old, and this is another one who will be a staple of the save, I am sure. Him and the goalkeeper forming a partnership at the back of the formation. You have Thomas Meunier. He's a player who's been at the club, a bit of an elder player, so one that may want to move on if we are just going to be buying elite youth talents. We have Mathieu Mori. He's a player who came from Barcelona. I think he's from Barcelona's academy. 22 years old now. Probably hasn't hit the heights of what Borussia Dortmund think he would be at this stage of his career. Nothing really exceptional stands off the page, but everything is good. I think he's a solid right back who can play some games, but we probably can sign slightly better. We have Emre Can, obviously former Liverpool, Juventus, Bayer Leverkusen player, ended up at Dortmund, slotted right in there, and is a staple of the team once again. We have Rafael Guerrero, Marius Wolf, Nico Schultz, Felix Paslak. Then we have Mr. Jude Bellingham. Now, as I said, I think he's going to be a key player in this save. The first thing we're going to look to do is get rid of that nasty release clause. £88 million is not enough for Jude, and if we can hopefully get rid of that straight away, we'll be happy going towards the end of the first season. Not a lot really needs to be said about him. He is elite and he will continue to get better and better and better. Salih Özcan, Mo Dahoud. We have Gio Reyna, obviously another of those players that Dortmund spotted quite early, coming from the NYCFC Academy, New York City in America. They snapped him up and they have developed his talent. I think he's going to get better. 19 years old. There is a lot still to come from Gio Reyna. We have Thorgan Hazard, who is Eden's brother, obviously, but made a name for himself in his own right, representing Belgium alongside his brother. I think he's a solid option, but we could probably do better. He's 29 years old now, so I've got a feeling that he could be one that moves on. We've got Julian Brandt, another player who has been at Dortmund for a little while. He's bounced around Germany a little bit, Wolfsburg, Bayer Leverkusen, finally at Dortmund. Still 26 years old. He's a player that we can slot into a tactic, and I think he will do really, really well. We got Jamie Bino Gittins. He's the one who was at the end of the list of talent, and I think he's the next one that will step forward. 17 years old. A lot of development still to come from him, but looking at him, pace of 16, acceleration of 17 is fantastic. We have then got Karim Adeyemi. Where else do we need to go in terms of wonder kids? Absolutely brilliant that they managed to get their hands on him from Salzburg. Yeah, he's only going one direction. He's going to go to the top of world football, especially in terms of FM23. We have Daniel Malen, who is another player that was brought in from Holland, Marco Reus, Anthony Modeste, Sebastian Haller. Now, obviously, sad story about Sebastian Haller in real life. Wish him all the best. A little bit sad that he's literally just got his move from Ajax and then everything happened. But in game, nothing has happened so far. So he's a player that we're going to look to utilise at the top of the pitch, and one that hopefully can teach our wonder kid, Mr. Makoko, how to get about life at the age of 17. If we're looking at Dev Centre, you can see that we have a number of prospects to promote. So Tom Roth, Filippo Mane, Namdi Collins, Prince Anning, and Sumaila Koulibaly. We have a strong under-19 squad and an average squad in terms of our second team. A quick look at our squad planner reveals some of the strengths and weaknesses in the team, but first let's run through what our assistant thinks is our best 11. So it's Kobel in goal, Guerrero, Sula, Hummels, Mounier, then it's Salih Ozcan, Emre Can, Jude Bellingham, Marco Reus, Hazard, and Adeyemi up top. In terms of the strengths and weaknesses, youth prospects, Marcel Lotka, Tom Roth and Prince Anning already at the club. Aerial reach, corners, finishing, penalties, player partnerships between Bellingham and Chan, player partnership between Guerrero and Hazard, and then free kick taking, defensive depth, and the defence in general. There are a few others there, but we won't run through them all. In terms of weaknesses and things that we can look to improve, the squad tend to lack good heading, positioning, jumping reach, transfer budget. Obviously it says 0, but that is because we have that first transfer window turned off. Overall depth, not a great deal of quality of depth outside of the first team, so obviously we're going to need to build for the future. We're going to need to bring quite a lot of players in to give us that depth once all the players start to develop. Marking, defensive depth, tackling, rushing out tendency for the goalkeepers, natural fitness, and the wage budget. If we look at the other version of the best 11, which also gives off where our best youth prospects are, it's Kobel, Guerrero, Sula, Hummels, Mounier, Chan, Ozcan, and Bellingham. Reus, Hazard, and Daniel Malen gets the nod up top. Looking at the youngsters though, we've got Abro in goal, Kabar, Mane, Schlotterbeck, Mori, Waltz, Korsienet, Kamara, Bino Gittins, Naufu is out on loan, and Makoko up top. So I think it's a strong enough team. I think with the youth that they've got at the club already and the players that they're developing, I think we need 1 or 2 new faces. Obviously, we're not going to get a lot of money initially, so we might have to start looking at what players we can move out. The transfer window being shut means that we can't find out what we can do until we get there, which is obviously an interesting thing. And it also means that any players that we move on, we're going to need to replace pretty quickly. So that is pretty much all of the roundup done for Borussia Dortmund. They are a fantastic team, and this is a fantastic prospect in terms of a team to manage. Looking forward to using all of the youth players that we can get. And remember, we are only going to be signing youth players to try and improve Borussia Dortmund. So we have now jumped forwards to the end of the first season. The date is the 1st of June 2023. And as I said, that first season is now in the books. So as always, we're going to give a complete rundown of everything that has happened in the first season. But we're going to start off with the transfers. Now, As always, it's interesting to see what happens because we have that first transfer window turned off, which means that we don't have any influence in the summer. The transfers that you see from those months are transfers that happen in real life. Now, when we take over, we obviously move forwards to the winter transfer window. Showed you the finances a little bit, £15 million. It meant that once we got to January, we only actually had £2 million in the bank, which was okay. We went out and we were looking at a few players for that kind of money, but it quickly became apparent that we'd probably have to sell to buy. And that's exactly what ended up happening. If we move over to the right-hand side and start off with the players that have left the club first, the first big name to go was on the 5th of January, and it was Julian Brandt. Now, this was a player I did not want to lose. I did not want him to leave. But obviously, Bayern Munich came sniffing around. It came to the point where he wanted a new contract at one point. We offered him the contract. He then wouldn't negotiate the contract even though he wanted it because Bayern Munich was sniffing around, and when Bayern actually put the money on the table, he just absolutely down tools. Didn't want to be at the club, wanted to leave, and we just granted the wish. It got to the point where I should have negotiated probably a little bit harder, probably should have pushed them for a bit more money, but £16.5 million is probably more valuable to me now than keeping an unhappy player and trying to convince him that his long-term future at the club and just let him walk away on a free transfer anyway. So he ended up leaving. He went to Bayern Munich. 16.5 rising to 20. It wasn't the best deal in the world, but I was glad to have a bit of cash at the club. The next player to go out was Prince Anning. He went to Kiel on loan. Samuel Bamba went to St. Pauli on loan. And Michael Eberwein went to Heidenheim on loan. We then lost Nico Schultz. He's another one. He was kind of unhappy at the club, wasn't getting the game time that he wanted, asked to move on. Lokomotiv Moscow came and put £900,000 down, and again we just kind of took the money. I could have negotiated this one a bit further too. He's a good utility player, which is why I like the player. Can play anywhere on the left hand side, could also be a makeshift right hand side player, and could also play a couple of positions through the middle. But at the age of 30, he's probably one of the players that would have been replaced long term anyway, so we allowed that deal to go through. And the last player to leave out on loan was Jaden Braff, going to Heidenheim on loan. So as I said, transfer window, we only had January to work with, and we initially didn't have the cash, but once we got up and running, we started to sign some players. The first player that we ended up signing was Scott Robertson. Now in real life, Borussia Dortmund have got this knack of coming to England and spotting academy players, picking them up and developing them into much better players. Normally to sell on for a profit, but they have started to keep some of their youth prospects, and that's exactly what we thought we would do here. I know that they've got some Barcelona academy players. They've also been to Italy, and they've got a few Italians on the books at the club too. But we just set the scouts out to go and find players that fitted that kind of profile, and the first name that popped up was Scott Robertson. He was on a scouting report. He was actually quite cheap, probably not the best of the players that we could have gone and got, but you can see here that he has good passing, good technique, he has good work rate, teamwork, vision. Determination of 12 is a little bit low, probably could have done with being a bit better, but for the price that we were paying, it was one of those where I think even if we move him on later on and we've given him a bit of development, we could probably still make some money back. So Scott Robertson was the first name to come into the club. The next one was Shea Charles. Now, Borussia Dortmund have been to Manchester City before. They picked up Jadon Sancho from there. It's kind of a path that I wanted to follow, and Shea Charles fitted the bill of what we wanted. He's a player who's very similar to Jude Bellingham, can play as an out-and-out defender, but he can play as the holder, he can play as a central midfielder, can also play as a right-back, so he has a few good bows to his arrows. Tackling of 14, passing of 14, marking of 12, position 15, work rate of 13, jumping reach is good. Pace could do with being a bit better, and acceleration could be a bit better, but I think that he fits all of the attributes that we need. He's 6'2", 12 stone 1, so he can move around the pitch, he's mobile, and I really do think we can develop him in the middle of the park. And also for the price that we paid, which was just 925,000 rising to 1.1 million, it could turn out to be a long-term investment. Then, once we received the Julian Brandt money, we signed a few players trying to get serious. So the first one that we went and signed, we signed two from the same club. We signed Timothy Pembele. We got him from PSG for £4.9 million. I think he's going to be a fantastic player. 20 years old, French, plays on the right-hand side of defence. everything that you need. Good pace, good acceleration. You can see his agility and stamina are already improving. His off the ball is improving, but he has good technique, tackling, marking, passing, first touch and crossing. So that's a pretty decent signing for the money that we got from Julian Brandt. The other player that we ended up signing was Andreas Skelderup. Now, he's a player that obviously needs no introduction. He's one of the true wonder kids in FM23, and I'll be honest, this is the first time that I've signed the player. I really do think that if all the hype is correct, we've got an absolutely fantastic deal. He's already worth 31 to 39 million pounds. We actually only paid 7.75, rising to 9 million pounds. Everything is there that you need. He's a wide left player with good pace, good acceleration, first touch, dribbling, finishing a 13, passing, technique. He has good off the ball, determination of 15, anticipation of 16. Absolutely fantastic signing if it comes off. If he comes good, it's going to pay for itself, isn't it? That money we've put as an outlay, he will fit the mould of everything that Borussia Dortmund tried to do in terms of transfers. We've obviously brought him in young and develop him up, paid a reasonable fee. I mean, don't forget, Borussia Dortmund did pay quite a lot of money for Jude Bellingham, but they're going to get that back in masses when they sell him on. Hopefully that's the kind of path that we can get for Andreas Skelderup. It's either going to work and he's going to stay at the club for the full 5 seasons, or somebody bigger is going to come in and they're going to lay out a massive bid and we're going to have a chance to either take the cash or try and convince him to stay at Borussia Dortmund in the long term. So with the money that we received all being spent on players to improve the squad, the next question is, was it money well spent? And the answer to that question is yes, the money was well spent. We managed to win the Bundesliga at the first time of asking, and we did it quite convincingly. Didn't do too great elsewhere, but definitely in the Bundesliga it was money well spent. If we have a look at the other competitions then, in the Champions League, unfortunately we were knocked out in the group stage. We were put in a group that contained Liverpool, PSG, ourselves and Rangers. Fortunately only scoring 4 points and not being able to make it through to the latter rounds. However, we did get put in the Europa League, and we didn't do too great there either. We got knocked out in the round of 16 by Fenerbahce. And in the DFB Pokal, we were knocked out in the third round by Köln. So in terms of knockout competitions, we really have work to do. In terms of leagues, though, let's break down the Bundesliga for you and show you exactly what happened. If we go to the stages and the league table, you can see that we finished up champions. We played 34 games. We won 27 of them. We drew 2. We did lose 5. We scored 86 goals. We conceded 34. Had a goal difference of 52. And got 83 points in our first season. We won the title by 11 points from Bayer Leverkusen. Bayern Munich did not have the greatest of seasons. They had 9 draws, 7 losses. Only scored 68. Conceded 36, only had a goal difference of 32, and they finished 20 points behind us. So pretty chuffed that even if we don't win another league title in the entire save, we're beaten by Munich, our nearest rivals, who bought one of our best players, by 20 points. If we look at the profile page then and go back to the league table first, you can see we didn't actually feature on the highest goal scorers. If we click on the goals, we had Karim Adeyemi scoring 14 goals, Daniel Malen getting 13, and we had Rafael Guerreiro down here on 9. So in the first season, Yusuf Makoko didn't manage to make that big of an impact. Looking at the average rating, 7.44 for Marlon, 7.38 for Adeyemi. We had Guerreiro with 10 assists. Player of the Match awards, let's see where our highest player was. So it was Makoko. Despite not getting on the score sheet too often, he did get 4 Player of the Match awards, and Malen also getting 4 Player of the Match awards there too. In terms of clean sheets, let's have a little look at where Kobel is. He got 12 clean sheets, so not a bad season. He just missed out on the top 4 here, with 14 being at the bottom. Yellow cards, 13 for Salih Ozcan, so not terrible in terms of the discipline. I think we have had a decent enough return in terms of staying out of the book. Distance covered per 90 minutes. Matthew Mori is our best player there, 14.86 kilometres. Tackles per 90 minutes, our best player isn't even on the list, so not a category we will be dominating. Dribbles per 90 minutes is another one where we actually don't have anybody on the list, which is quite strange considering we do play a formation with 2 wide players. So, a fantastic first season. If we go through the schedule as well and just show you some of the results that we did have, try and highlight some of the games. So we had a 5-1 victory against Leverkusen to start the season, and we had some pretty crazy games. We beat Bochum 4-0. We did lose to PSG 4-0. We went on a run of games where we didn't win too many here. Wolfsburg and Borussia Mönchengladbach both beat us by 3-0 and 3-1. Then we had that break for the World Cup, plus Bundesliga have a little bit of a winter break still off the back of that. We then had some impressive wins against Freiburg 4-0, Hertha 5-0, where we beat Betis 2-0 in the Europa League. We had a run of games towards the end of the season where we just absolutely dominated and finished off in style. So all in all, we had some impressive results. I mean, here's a 4-1 against Leipzig. We had a 3-1 against Schalke. We drew 2-2 with Bayern Munich. And then towards the end of the season, we had a 5-1 win against Borussia Mönchengladbach, where Daniel Marlin scored all 5 goals in a single game. And we beat Mainz 3-1 there also. So that's how the table ended up. We played 34, won 27, got 83 points. It's a fantastic first season of the rebuild. Off the back of winning the Bundesliga, then let's have a little look at the finances at the club. So the club has an overall balance now of £44.2 million. We have £13.6 million in the bank. Our wage budget is 2.4 and we are spending £2.2 million. So absolutely sound in terms of the finances. In the first season, we did have a crossover point where we started to lose a bit of money. As you can see, April 2023, the club were in the red. However, winning the Bundesliga and being in the Champions League and the Europa League helped pull that money back, and come the end of the season, once the prize money's all been given out and we have got all of the money back in, we actually end the season not looking too bad in terms of the finances. Let's have a quick overview of the club vision tab then. So our job security is secure. Actionable objectives: work within the wage budget, we're on course. Increase commercial revenue, reserving judgment. Sign players to sell for a profit. Now that's one that I said earlier on that we will look to do, although hopefully we can start to keep some of those players. Grow the club's reputation. I think that we are doing that. Minimum 4-year contracts for first team players. I wouldn't offer them any less, really. Apart from Hummels and Rouse, we had to renew their contracts, but they would only get 2 years at tops. In terms of the 5-year plan, we want to reach the knockout stages of the Champions League and qualify for the Champions League for next season. They want to work towards becoming the most reputable team in Germany. Looking at the board feedback compiled by Hans-Joachim Watzke, who is our general manager. To summarise, the board are pleased with your management of the team. Last season's success remains fresh in our memories. Our appraisal takes that into account. So the board culture is play attacking football, delighted. Develop players using the club's youth system. Now, we're going to have a bit of a mix of this because obviously I want to sign some of the best wonder kids to help push Dortmund forwards. They want to sign players to sell for a profit, but they also want to use the youth system. So I'm hoping we're going to have some gems in our youth academy, the likes of Tom Roth, Prince Anning. There was a few others that are in there that really look like we could promote them from within, and hopefully one day start to add them into the first team and get them some real first team football. But I'm not too sure yet what's going to happen. If the money stays around 13 million and we're signing 1 or 2 wonder kids every year, it might be that those youth team players get a bit more game time. If the money starts to go up, then it's obviously going to be that we're probably going to be buying players, but we could still integrate them into the youth system first and bring them on later on. They also want to play entertaining football. They are pleased with that. Notable highlights: very pleased with a 3-1 victory over Wolfsburg. Delighted with the positive atmosphere in the changing room. Pleased with the comprehensive 5-1 Bundesliga triumph against Borussia Mönchengladbach. Disappointed about a 1-0 loss to Stuttgart. Looking at the supporters, overall, B-. Develop players using the club's youth system. They're reserving the judgment. Play attacking football. Sign German players. Disappointed. Now, obviously, Dortmund do sign some German players, but it tends to be experienced German players. I don't really want to do that. I want to sign youth players, and they don't really sign youth players from other teams. They kind of are the provider. So it's going to be a little bit difficult to hit that one. I'm hoping that doesn't stay there for the long term, but hey ho. Play high tempo pressing football, reserving judgment. Finish above Schalke in the league, delighted. Qualify for the UEFA Champions League, the reserving judgment. Notable highlights: pleased with a 3-1 Bundesliga victory against Wolfsburg, delighted with Mokoko's recent performances, delighted with Daniel Malen's recent performances, disappointed about a 1-0 loss to Stuttgart, disappointed with Shea Charles's recent performances, disappointed with Anthony Modeste's recent performances. The final thing then to run over at the end of the first season is the best 11. Now obviously there are two versions of this. We're going to start off with this one here that just says Scout Report Best 11. Basically run through them, have a little look at the strengths and weaknesses before switching to the other version and then going over where we are and where we might need to improve looking at the future. So it's now saying that Kobel is our best goalkeeper, Roth, Hummels, Sula and Mounier are our best back four. Emre Can, Salih Ozcan and Jude Bellingham are the best three midfielders, with Rouse, Hazard and Adeyemi. So the players that we signed haven't managed to crack the first team yet. I think Timothy Pembele is going to be an absolutely fantastic player going forwards, and I do think that some of the players that we are going to look to develop will get into the first team sooner rather than later. But it's understandable that our staff want the experienced players in those roles. Looking at the strengths and weaknesses then, so best player form is Daniel Malen, 7.84 in his last 5 matches. Youth prospects including Filippo Mane, Julian Rykhoff and Raul Koenig. They're all at the club. The team in general are impressive dribblers and often threaten when running with the ball. Finishing, technique, acceleration. Top goal scorer, Karim Adeyemi's 14 strikes, ranking 6th in the competition. Kobel is one of 3 good options in goal. Sula is the best of 7 good options available to play at right back. Defensive strength and defensive depth seem to be good for the team. Looking at the weaknesses, natural fitness. Clearly lacks natural fitness, so maybe that's one to look at in terms of our staff. Maybe start putting them through their paces or looking to replace some of the players who are not naturally fit. Overall depth is still an issue outside of the first team. One-on-ones, positioning, long throws, rushing out tendency for goalkeepers. Midfield depth could do with more depth in the midfield. Marking, command of area, anticipation, reflexes, teamwork and determination. Which is quite strange because we were a determined bunch at the start of the save. If we switch to the other one, the best 11 then. So we've got Gregor Kobel in goal. Roth, Hummel, Sula, Mori at right back. Emre Can, Ozcan, Bellingham. We've got Marco Reus, Hazard and Karim Adeyemi. And then the youth players are Abro, Kabar, Rahman, Schlotterbeck, Rashidi, Korsnietz, Waltz, Kamara, Skelderup, Nauf and Makoko. So it's interesting to see both Makoko and Skelderup are on the purple version of the best 11. Sebastian Gepper is our assistant manager, so he obviously rates those two. Schlotterbeck also playing as a purple player at the moment is one who is going to be pushed forwards, I'm pretty sure, in season 2. Looking at it, I think it's one of those where we're going to have to go season by season to see where the strengths and weaknesses are and try and address players where we can buy for the right type of player. Now obviously the criteria is to sign under 21s who are going to either be able to be developed or they're going to be able to go straight into the first team. Once we lose certain players like Marco Reus and Mats Hummels, we're going to have to find those players quite quickly, because if they're young, if they're like 17, 18, they're going to have a couple of seasons whilst those first teamers are there, and then once they're gone, they're going to have to step in and maybe replace some of the club legends. So it's going to be a bit of a balancing act to try and get this exactly right, but I think we can spot some weaknesses in the team. Obviously right wing, we've now got left wing covered with Skelderup. We need a central midfielder. Shea Charles has come in, he's still not ready, he's developing though, coming from Manchester City, so that was a decent signing. But I do think we lack a bit of depth in the middle of the park, so if we could go out and sign maybe a wonder kid in the middle of the park, that would help us at the club. And then we've got Hummels, Sula, we have also got Schlotterbeck. They can all play as centre-backs. I think maybe we're a bit light at left-back and right-back, so maybe that's something that we're going to look at, but Pembele coming in at right-back is a big, big signing for us. So that is the first season complete. We have won the Bundesliga, as you can see, 83 points, winning it by 11, smashing Bayern Munich completely out of the park. Can we continue that form in season 2? The only way you're going to find out is by coming back and checking out the next episode. But if you're still with me at this point of the video, firstly, a big thank you. I really do appreciate everybody who takes the time to stick around and watch the content, support the channel. If you haven't hit the like and subscribe button, please consider doing that too. Really helps the channel. If you spread the videos around, helps me to get this content out to other people, and I really appreciate everybody who's helped the channel to grow in the past couple of months. For this one though, I am nearly done. Before I do go, don't forget to check out other things on the channel. We have Let's Plays, Wonder Kids, tutorials, tips and tricks. There's something for everybody on the channel. So for this one, I'm going to wrap it there. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Dortmund Rebuild.